What's up, gang? Wait for everybody to file in here. Let's see. Okay, I'm live. I appear to be live everywhere. Okay. What's up? So, I am on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. What's up? Hit me with your questions. Let me know what questions you have about Carbon Diet Coach, about the app, questions about nutrition, training in general. I am happy to answer them. Be going hard for the next 40-ish minutes. So, hit me with what you got. If you're on Instagram, try to drop your question in the question box so I can pull it up for everybody. That'd be awesome. Facebook, YouTube, feel free to drop your questions in as well, and I'll do my best to answer them. Let's see if we got any right now. No questions yet. All right, you guys gotta step it up. Come on. I can't answer the questions that don't exist. Sumo deadlift or conventional? It just depends on what your goal is. I mean, if for powerlifting, you should use the one that you feel most comfortable with and can lift the most weight with. If it's for muscular development, then it depends on what you're targeting. If you're trying to target glutes and quads, probably sumo. If you're trying to target lower back and hamstrings, posterior chain, then probably conventional. Does doing a 24-hour fast mess with your metabolism? Not long term. Acutely, we'll probably drop it a little bit, but once you start eating again, it'll go back to normal. Okay, this is a carbon user. Hello, I'm curious why when I switched to maintenance calories from a cut, the maximum protein went from 150 down to 135. That is because when you are at maintenance or in a caloric surplus, you require less protein than when you're in a deficit. When you're in a deficit, protein oxidation increases and protein degradation increases. Therefore, in order to get the same anabolic effect, you need a little bit more protein. So we aren't decreasing your protein. We're just taking it down to a level that's not normal, but is still high protein, but you just don't need as much when you're consuming carbohydrates and fats. Both carbohydrates and fats are protein sparing. Carbohydrates more protein sparing than fats are, because carbohydrates can increase insulin, and insulin is anti-proteolytic, meaning it inhibits protein breakdown. So that's why. Why does the app always set my protein to less than 1 gram per pound of body weight? So your protein needs are based off of your lean body mass. Non-lean body mass does not have much of a protein requirement. As such, we base it off your lean body mass. Now, if you want more protein, you can go into your settings, click on dietary preferences, and then drag the protein slider up, and you can get more protein. But trust me, my PhD, literally, my PhD is in protein, okay? Protein metabolism specifically, at the best university in the United States to get a protein metabolism PhD. I studied under the legendary Dr. Don Layman, who is a god of protein metabolism. We were focused on high protein diets. We have a bias towards high protein. I promise you, we are giving you enough protein. I promise. Carbon Diet Coach equals food freedom. Thank you. Glad you're enjoying the app. Menopause, how it affects weight loss. So weight loss probably does get more difficult during menopause. Hang on, what is going on here? Sorry. Okay, sorry. I thought I lost people on Facebook and YouTube. Menopause probably does make weight loss harder, but not for the reasons that you think it does. Most people think, oh, my metabolism slows down. We have a myriad of scientific studies to show that your metabolism does not slow down during menopause. However, because of the hormonal shift, what may happen is one, your appetite goes up and you end up snacking more without realizing it. Two, you don't feel as good, and so you spontaneously begin moving less. And your little fidgety movements throughout the day is something called non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So, like right now, I'm like actually like, well, now I'm not because I'm aware of it, but I'll fidget, like I'll move my feet, I'll bounce up and down. If I'm on the phone, I'll pace. Um, I wave my hands a lot when I talk. Those are not all ways that your body dissipates energy that you aren't even aware of. They're subconscious movements. And when people feel worse, they do less of that. And so, what is likely is your spontaneous physical activity goes down during menopause for some women, and that makes it more difficult to lose weight. But it's not because of basal metabolic rate. Let's see here. Can you go on Diary of a CEO podcast and debunk all the crap that he has on? They invited me last week. I'm not able to make it happen this year because the dates they have available don't work for me. But we're going to try and go on in January of 2024. So hopefully sometime next year, you'll see a podcast with me. Okay, let's take a question from Facebook. What is your opinion on sleep trackers like Whoop or Apple Watch? Are there any plans to integrate sleep tracking into Carbon? No, because it doesn't directly affect energy expenditure. And that's what Carbon is concerned with. I mean, it may be something we think about with coaching cues, but I'm not sure that I trust that the sleep technology, I'd have to do more digging into it. Because here's the deal, guys. A lot of you guys, like, you see these watches, and you're like, you just assume that they're accurate because somebody made them. Who tested it? What's the reliability? Where's the data? Like, when it comes to the energy expenditure stuff on this, the calories burned, these overestimate anywhere from 25 to 95% the calories. So, like, I don't trust that they're accurate. I want to see the data myself. If they are, then maybe we move that into coaching cues. Like, we say like, hey, you had more sleep tonight. Be aware of your snacking because appetite goes up after a night of bad sleep. Make sure to auto-regulate your training, so on and so forth. But it's not going to, like, having something that's like a daily changeable thing affect long-term nutrition recommendations. It's just not a good idea. And quite frankly, it's superfluous. That would be more something that would integrate with like a training app. With having potential insulin resistance, should I bias towards lower carb throughout the app? So what the research shows is that 70 to 80% of the improvements in insulin resistance are purely from losing weight alone. Exercise also helps it. If you do low carb, your fasting blood glucose and your fasting blood insulin and your HOMA-IR and your HbA1c may resolve a little bit faster than if you're doing a comparatively higher carbohydrate approach. But on the long term, if you lose a similar amount of weight, you will see a similar improvement in insulin resistance. So if you like low carb, it's totally fine to do. But if you find that it's unsustainable for you, then you're better off doing and sticking with the diet that will allow you to be consistent, because that is going to produce the best long-term results, is whatever you can be consistent with. If it's low carb, great. But if it's not, don't try to force yourself into that if it just means that you're not able to be consistent with it, because that is the biggest determinant of whether or not you're going to be successful. So I really try to like hammer home the importance of consistency. I know it's not sexy. I wish it was. I wish consistency was like the sexiest thing in the world. Be like, oh man, Layne's talking about the importance of consistency again. Man, that's so awesome. But people are like, oh, ho hum, consistency. Tell me more about biohacks. So I wish consistency is the biohack. The magic, one of my favorite quotes is, the magic you are looking for is in the work you are attempting to avoid. You cannot out-hack hard, consistent, executed work. Sorry, I'm not like yelling at you. I just get excited about this stuff. If you get off creatine, do you maintain the differential gains you made while on creatine? The answer is probably no, to a certain extent. We don't know. There's possibility that creatine may increase long-term satellite cell fusion, in which case will raise your anabolic potential. But no, like if you stop taking it, you will go back to baseline. You guys, a lot of people don't have the right impression of this stuff. Okay, so your line is here of where you're at. If you take creatine, it goes to here. Okay, but once you've gotten the benefits, it's not like it just linearly increases. That's not how it works. Just like if you take steroids, your line is here, it goes to here. Unless you increase the dosage of those steroids, it stays right there. And if you stop taking them, it goes back to here eventually. So yeah, but just because you don't keep them doesn't mean that it's not useful. The same thing goes for caffeine. If you stop using caffeine, it stops having an effect. I don't really know of any supplement or like resistance training. You don't keep the gains from resistance training, guys. If you stop lifting weights, you go back to what you were. So why is everyone so worried about whether or not they maintain those gains? So the point is, with anything in health and wellness, or you're trying to increase your muscle mass or whatever, you can't look at it like it's a, if you have a bacterial infection, you can take an antibiotic, and that antibiotic will clear it out, and you'll be good. You don't need to keep taking the antibiotic. But if you have, like, say, type 1 diabetes, if you stop taking insulin, it stops working. So same thing with lifting weights, whatever. You have to keep doing it if you want to keep getting the benefits. Again, not angry, just re-emphasizing that there's no magic here, but you just have to consistently keep doing it. So even the most well-known anabolic substances in the world, you don't get to keep it. You don't get to keep it. Should I take creatine even on my off days? You probably, who knows? You might not have to. My thing is, it's like 25 cents a serving. So or 50 cents a serving or whatever. So, I mean, if you really want to, I don't mean to sound glib, but when you're talking about, basically the equivalent of like 10 or 15 bucks a month, I would say just take it and be safe to make sure you're getting the benefits. Study published in Nature saying increased risk of heart attack and stroke with erythritol use. That's not what the study said. That's not what the study said. Not what it said. So again, this points out the importance of reading a full text, or at least following people who read a full text. So erythritol is a sweetener that's about 70% the sweetness of sugar with basically no calories. Now, your body actually produces erythritol naturally as part of the pentose phosphate pathway, the PPP, and not the one that the government gives. And in people, so what you're seeing here in this study, they didn't measure erythritol use. What they measured was blood levels of erythritol. Well, wouldn't you know it, that people who these people, by the way, were very, very sick. This population was very sick. Majority had already had one cardiovascular event. The majority had high blood pressure. The majority had metabolic syndrome. Very sick people. Guess what happens in that archetype of person? They produce more erythritol because their pentose phosphate pathway is dysregulated. So what you're looking at is a reverse causality issue, most likely, where erythritol, high levels of erythritol, are not causing heart disease. Being metabolically unhealthy is causing blood levels of erythritol to be high. So once again, very important as to why it's important to read the full text of a study if you have the wherewithal to do so. If you don't, that's why you should follow me. Carbon diet user. I'm a menopausal woman, 53 years old. I have an injury in one knee. What is the strength training frequency you recommend? I'm 53. I only take walks. So do you think that's enough for me to keep off 15 pounds? I mean, I don't know anything about your nutrition. I don't know anything about your energy expenditure. Walking is a great exercise. I think strength training is the mother of all exercise. So I would recommend doing what you can strength training wise. It doesn't have to be like heavy squats and like that sort of thing. You know, but I would look for exercises that you can do with low pain. And I recommend getting with a qualified physical therapist, especially as you get older. The importance of having a high level of muscle mass. One of the number one things correlated with mortality, which is basically when you die, is your lean mass and your grip strength, which is just a proxy for overall strength. After age 55, 60, the number one predictor of longevity, I believe, is lean mass and grip strength. And then VO2 max is also up there. Strength train. Strength train, strength train. Do it as much and as frequently as your time allows. Hang on. Sorry, I try to touch my phone and then my other stream messes up. Okay, YouTube question. I've heard that a loss of first mistake, listening to most people about weight loss who aren't professionals. I've heard that a loss of 1 to 2% body weight per week is a healthy rate. No, it's not. My weight is 220. I'd like to lose 2 pounds a week, but Carbon gives me a warning when I try to lose more than 1.8 pounds. That is because I looked through the research literature, and there is pretty much an inflection point once you get above like 0.8 to 1% of body weight per week. You are at drastically increased risk of lean mass loss. And we even see this in a recent study of women who were on a 1,000-calorie deficit, lost a significant amount of lean mass in even just 10 days of a restrictive diet like that. Don't rush the process. Go slow. You want to maintain your lean mass. But below 1% per week is probably fine. I'm 25% body fat. Should I recomp or just aggressively cut to 15%? I am not a big fan of recomping. I have just seen way too many people spin their wheels all the time, chasing two rabbits and catching neither. So I would recommend just picking one goal and sticking with it. My compliments for Carbon. Thank you. I love that. I love that. They call it emoji. Is there an ideal body fat percentage to reach prior to beginning a massing phase? No. There is no empirical evidence that you need to be a certain body fat in order to conduct a lean gaining phase. Now, what is probably a good idea is to be a level of body fat that you are willing to tolerate some fat gain. If you say, I am not willing to tolerate any fat gain more than what I already have, then you're not ready for a gaining phase, period. Usually I'll tell people, if you are willing to increase your relative body fat percentage by at least 30%. Now, I don't mean going from like 10% to 40%. What I mean is if you're 10%, 30% of that is 3%. So if you're 10% and you're not willing to get up to 13%, then don't bother with a gaining phase. So what I do recommend is to cut until you feel comfortable with gaining some weight. But a lot of you just end up cutting all the time because you're not willing to put the time in and be uncomfortable. And I can tell you that I started lifting weights when I was 140 pounds and about 8% body fat on calipers. Now I'm about 210 pounds and about the same body fat. I would not have recomped my way here. I had to add mass, period. That meant at times being uncomfortable. Does a protein shake cause more acne? No. End story. Oh my God. Instagram, come on. I want that off. Turn it off. Sorry. You know, it's great when technology works, and when it doesn't, it's a real mother. All right, I guess I just have to go find. How do I trust myself, the app, that I have the right calories for fat loss when it comes to exercising? Because even if it's not, the app will adjust it appropriately based on how you progress. So my guess is you probably have a tendency for perfectionism and paralysis by analysis. And I will tell you that you just need to do. Stop worrying about whether it's right and start worrying about whether or not you're just executing on a daily basis. Because my guess is most times you haven't failed because you didn't have the right macros. You failed because you just stopped consistently executing. So you can do it. It can be done, but just start. If your macros are wrong, the app will know it and it will adjust. Is it possible to grow muscle in a calorie deficit? I'm translating here because that's not exactly what he said, but it is possible for some people, but it's usually confined to three distinct populations. First one are people who have never lifted weights before or are returning after a long layoff. The second are people who are very obese, because when you're obese, your body does not sense an energy deficit the same way because you have a lot of adipose tissue to pull from. Finally, people on anabolic steroids and performance-enhancing drugs, and any combination of 1 through 3. But if you're not in those three categories, my recommendation to you is focus on one goal or the other. Chase 2 rabbits and catch none. How long would you recommend sticking with a goal? I'm considering accomplishing my weight loss by alternating monthly weight loss to maintenance. You guys, you really like black and white answers. And the reality is it's not black and white. You can go to maintenance for a month. That's totally fine. In fact, I think periods of maintenance are excellent tools as long as it's facilitating long-term adherence. But you also don't have to. There's no hard and fast rule about how long you have to stick with a goal. Is weight loss possible while consuming alcohol as long as you're within your calories? Yes, but you may not like the composition results if you're drinking a lot of alcohol. What a good goal weight is. I've been on a diet for a while and I'm really wondering when I should end it. That's not really something I can answer for you. That's your own individual goal. Like, if you're comfortable where your weight's at now, then end it now. Like, if you're comfortable with it and you're happy with where you're at, then end it now. If you want to get leaner, then keep going. But that's really kind of up to you. Oh, I see. So following up on how long should you have a goal, it takes time for app to calibrate your calorie input weight. Yeah, I mean, I would probably try to stick with a goal in the initial for your initial goal when you first sign up for the app. I would definitely not do less than 4 weeks. Once the app has gotten to know you, then you could switch back and forth every couple of weeks, probably. But the first time, I would definitely not do shorter than 4 weeks of compliant check-ins. Hey, Layne, Carbon User here. Thank you for your business. I'm noticing I'm able to better manage my hunger on a cut when I reduce training volume and frequency. Have you seen this with other clients? It's really just very individually dependent. Um, Training overall in the scientific research has a net anorectic effect, meaning it reduces food intake relative to the energy you expend. So let's say you expend 400 calories in the gym. You do end up eating more to compensate in general, but the compensation is not complete. It's only about 30%. So if you on average, because everyone's different, but if you exercised and burned 400 calories, you might compensate by consuming an extra 120 calories. But that's still a net benefit of 280 calories contributing towards a deficit. So overall, exercise is a good way to increase energy expenditure and create a calorie deficit or support a calorie deficit. But um, if it's different for you, then reduce your training volume and frequency, but try to keep it up enough that you're not going to lose mass. Because if you drastically reduce your training volume and frequency, you are no longer sending the same signal to your skeletal muscle of mechanical tension. And if it doesn't need as much muscle to maintain, you will start losing it. Uh, nature and Nature and Asked Bernard says it took me with some omissions and errors about 6 weeks to have the app know what's what. That's not long at all. It learns quickly, and that's with me not working it perfectly for those who asked. Yeah, I would say, like I said, 4 weeks of compliant check-ins. I think that's really a good target where the app should know you quite well. I mean, at this point, I've been using our app for almost 4 years, actually 4 years now. Oh, a Saint Bernard. Sorry. Um, yeah, I've been using the app for 4 years now because I'm going all the way back to the beta. And the app has me so dialed in that when I do any kind of phase of weight loss or anything, I will literally hit my goal weight in the time period I had advised for it within 0.1 pounds. That's how dialed in the app is. Okay. But I have had in 4 years 2 non-compliant check-ins. So that's why it works so well, because I do the work, I check in consistently, and I weigh consistently. If you don't do the work, you're not going to get the results. Got to do the work, guys. Do you think competing in bodybuilding can drive up clientele? I'm considering competition as a natural, knowing I may not place well, but rather wanting to use this as a tool for marketing since I work with Gen Pop and I'm a bodybuilding fanatic. Here's what I'll say. If you do not have a burning desire to do a bodybuilding show, I would not do a bodybuilding show. It is hard as hell. You are going to suffer the worst fatigue, body dysmorphia, and general uncomfortableness and irritability and hunger than you could ever imagine in your entire life. I want you to imagine the most tired you've been, the hungriest you've ever been. And then I want you to think about that being chronic for weeks at a time. If you do not have a burning desire to compete, it's very unlikely you'll stick with it. What I would recommend for marketing is getting yourself into, a really lean shape and then doing a photo shoot. That can be very good marketing. But I don't think doing a bodybuilding competition, if you don't have a burning desire to do so, is a good idea, because honestly, it will probably hurt your business. The last time I competed 13 years ago, I got really lean. A lot of people wanted my help, and I was so cognitively impaired by being that lean that I just couldn't. I couldn't work to the same capacity. I walked slower. I talked slower. I blinked slower. That is how hard that shit is. Just trust me on this. Very, 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 to get lean enough to do well, very difficult. Physically, it is the single hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. And you're talking about a man who squatted 668 pounds, deadlifted 727 pounds. For powerlifting, I would train for meets for 3-4 hours at a time, 5 days a week. And physically, none of that held a candle to the amount of fatigue, uncomfortableness, irritability, cognitive impairment, and hunger like you cannot possibly fathom that stays with you. Oh, also, it completely tanks your libido, like very bad. So, now that being said, I loved bodybuilding, so I made those sacrifices willingly, and I did really well. But if you aren't into bodybuilding, if you are not like, man, it is my burning desire to do a show, then do not do it. All right. Sorry. Yeah, sounds like a blast. Yeah, it's I had fun with it because I loved, seeing myself being able to change my body and mold my body that way. But there's a reason I haven't competed in 13 years. Last question. I lost 30 pounds with carbon diet over the last year until now. How long should my reverse be? I'm 193 pounds, 43-year-old male, trained several times a week. There doesn't have to be like a defined period of time that you do a reverse for. What I would say is just reverse up to the point where you feel like comfortable with your food intake and your energy's good, and then you can stop there. Yeah, I don't think it has to be something where it's like you must reverse for this period of time if you dieted for this period of time. In general, the reverse is probably going to need to be proportional to, the severity of the deficit, how much weight you lost, and how long you were in it. But if you feel good and your calories get back up faster than that, if it's 2 months, 3 months, then do that. So it's just kind of like if you feel good, you've got good energy, and your calories at a manageable place. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Truly appreciate it. Guys, if you have not tried out our app, Carbon Diet Coach, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. I am a client. I have been a client. I'm not only the founder or one of the founders, I'm a client. Sounds like a Just for Men hair commercial. So can you do IFYM for contest prep? Bro, where have you been for the last 20 years? Yes. So make sure you download our app, subscribe to our app. It's less than $10 a month, and it is phenomenal. It works great. I compete on an international level, and I use Carbon to coach me for nutrition. I won world championships last year in powerlifting for my age group, and I used Carbon to coach me for nutrition. That is how much I trust it. All right. So hit the link in our bio. Go download and subscribe. I promise you won't be disappointed if you do the work. All right, gang. Hope you'll have a great one. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time. See ya, Facebook and YouTube.